Ago or something.
Oh,
Hey, welcome to another episode of the Rock Fantasy Files. Tonight on this special edition, we discuss all things Black Sabbath, the Ozzy Osbourne era, the beginning years, and of course some of the reunion concerts they did in the 13 album that came out in 2013. Of course, Black Sabbath are the godfathers of heavy metal, pretty much. Formed in Birmingham, 1968, by Tony Iommi, with drummer Bill Ward, bassist Geezer Butler, and vocalist Ozzy Osbourne, the original members. And tonight I've asked my guests to choose their three favorite albums from the Ozzy Osbourne era. And to me, tonight's episode, and I'll go by someone that was that did Zeppelin show with me last week. He used this quotation, and I love it. For me, it's like having 9 children and deciding which 3 are you going to feed? Because I really love all their stuff. I mean, there's nothing I don't like from that Ozzy era. I do like the 13 album too. I think that's a good album. So,
that's good.
who wants to go first tonight?
Well, I got a question before we start.
Okay.
Are we doing albums or songs?
We're doing albums.
My email said songs, I thought.
Yeah, I thought
Is
it
that
was
it?
songs, but it's okay.
Yeah.
You know
I
what?
just need to scramble.
The Ozzy solo episode next week was songs, and tonight's album. So now I screwed up all your homework. But if you want to, if you pick songs out already, you know what? Whoever picked albums picks albums. Whoever picked their songs picks songs. Whatever you want to do, it doesn't make any difference. I mean, it's not like this is a high end.
Right. All right. Well, I'm gonna be looking at my phone while you guys are talking, just because I'm cramming now.
That's good. That's good.
But I am listening to you. So.
All right, good. So tonight's guest on the show is Chris Alo, a longtime rock and roll journalist. He's from the Hudson Valley Squares, Sea of Tranquility, and he's a big Black Sabbath buff. And a little bit of an historian, I say. We got one of our regulars. All the guys are regulars tonight, actually. John McEntee from the mighty Incantation, Will Carroll from Death Angel, Andrew Freeman from Last in Line, and The Offspring, and a few other bands. And Chris Caffery will be joining us late tonight. He promises. So if there's any Caffery fans, keep watching. He should pop his head in here pretty soon. So
fashionably late, right?
He's a rock and roller guy. He's actually working on an album or something. So he's doing a lot of studio work, he told me at the moment. So I guess we'll kick things off with Mr. Alo tonight. Welcome to the show.
Sure. Thanks. Hey everybody. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Steve, for having me back on the show. It's always a pleasure to speak with you, and especially when we're talking my favorite band, Black Sabbath.
Hell yeah.
And how many times have you seen Black Sabbath, Chris Alo? And I'm not talking just Ozzy years. I'm talking about everything.
My total is 41.
41. Okay.
Yeah. I've seen them in the States. Plus England, Holland, Belgium. Flew to California to see him on the end tour. I flew to instead of going to the end because I did that in 1999. I flew to Birmingham, England, to see the final shows in '99. But then, of course, they were back in 2001. So when they did the farewell tour, I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to go to the very first show. So I flew to Oklahoma with my buddy Sean, and we had second row center in Oklahoma to see the first night of the farewell tour, which was fantastic and dirt cheap. I mean, the night of the show, we had second row, and we got them through Ticketmaster. Like, it was something ridiculous, like $250 for second row. They had front row tickets the night of the show for like $100. I mean, because it's in Oklahoma. But
Madison Square Garden price.
Oh yeah. God, yeah. Like front row tickets for Sabbath, like a month later in the Garden, they were like $8,000. I mean, I still went to the Garden, but I didn't have front row.
Sometimes it's cheaper to fly to another state and buy.
Totally.
Go
Absolutely.
to the Midwest, you'll get cheap tickets.
One question I have is, out of all those shows, those Sabbath shows with Ozzy, which one was the worst?
Oh God, I'm trying to think which one was the worst.
One he didn't sing at, maybe.
That might have been the best.
Yeah, I would have liked that one, the one with Halford. I would have really liked that one. John, that's I'm trying to think. I mean, some of the shows in '99, Ozzy was really having vocal problems, and but they booked a ton of dates. I mean, they were booking like 5-6 dates in a week. So the way that I guess Sharon worked around it was they kept cutting the set shorter and shorter.
I remember those years. Yes.
Yeah.
So like in 1999, and then I'm not talking the Ozfest dates. I'm talking like the full arena headlining shows. 1999, Sabbath is doing like 68, 70 minutes a night sometimes. I'm like, oh man, like, you know, driving all this way and getting an abbreviated set was kind of, that was kind of lame. So probably one of those shows.
Was that the time? I know when there was a time when they had a guy singing behind the curtain that was just doubling.
Yes. Oh God.
I didn't even know about that. Wow.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of his name.
I know who it is. He's a friend of mine, but I don't know.
Well, there's interviews with him online.
Okay.
Didn't he do stuff with like George Lynch and?
Yeah, it's Rob Mason. Robert Mason.
Right there you go. But yeah, so that, you know, and
but what a great gig that would have been, man. You get on the fucking plane, you don't ever see anybody. You go in a little room, you sing.
Well, listen,
sit down, you got a recliner and drinks, and nobody bugs you. No,
even better than that was the Vinny Appice gig in all of 1999. And I remember running into Vinny at some of the East Coast shows.
Yeah,
he toured with Sabbath. And if anything happened to Bill Ward, if he had a heart attack in the middle of the set, they were just going to push his body out of the way. And Vinny's drum kit was set up behind Bill Ward's. They were just going to roll it in, but it never happened. So Vinny got to travel, and
that's a really
interesting
story.
Gig. And for stupid money too, like
stupid
money. Yeah, I won't tell you how much, but it was stupid fucking money. Crazy. So
and I know we're getting off
he might have been getting paid better than Bill Ward.
For
sure.
I hope not.
You know why? That's why he didn't want to work with him.
Yeah.
But I mean, to get paid like a band like that, like a full and just sit around all night, just kind of hang out all night. Man, I imagine it'd be fun for the first week or two, but then I think I would kind of be like, fuck, man.
Well, just spend the time counting your money.
Yeah.
That's not so bad.
So, Will Carroll, do you have a backup drummer in case you don't feel well when you're on tour with Death Angel?
Yeah, my drum tech.
Okay.
And he gets paid more than you, probably.
He probably does.
Yeah, usually they do.
Though.
I know.
So I guess Chris, we'll go back to you, and you can tell us your third.
Okay, so my third favorite Sabbath record would be Master of Reality. I really love the I love all the Sabbath records, the entire catalog, except for Never Say Die and Forbidden. I think both those records are terrible, but that's just my personal opinion. But I really love the first three Sabbath records. They just have a rawness. They were all produced. Those three records were produced by Roger Bain, and the stories go back and forth with how much he did and how much he didn't do. I've read interviews with Tony that he did a lot. I've read interviews, that he didn't do much. I've read interviews with Bill Ward where he did a ton, and that when they got to volume 4 and they decided to produce it themselves, they didn't know what to do. So I don't know what the story is. Who knows? But man, there's just the whole album is just nothing but classics. I mean, Sweet Leaf, After Forever, Children of the Grave, Lord of this World, Solitude, Into the Void. I mean, it's just great. I mean, it's a fantastic record.
Yeah, I agree.
Agree.
It's a great record. I mean, for me, the songs are a little bit played out because I know them all by heart and probably listened to my whole life. So that's the only downfall to an album like that. But I mean, as far as classic songs, it doesn't get.
I would say that album is a total blueprint for a classic doom metal sound.
Yeah.
Of all the early Sabbath albums, that's the most doomy album, I think.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, definitely like a stoner influence.
Yes, very much so.
I mean,
when you
influence
put
stoner bands.
That's like my number 2. But that I remember just being a kid and putting that record on and just and then the coughing. Just the coughing at the top of Sweet Leaf was like, this is the coolest fucking thing I've ever heard. What do they mean, Sweet Leaf? Like, what are they talking about? And why is he coughing?
Yeah, I think that.
And then just kind of, I would get to the point where it would get super doomy, and then I would kind of lift it and go down to Children of the Grave, get to the end of that and just keep doing that over and over again,
Well, that Children of the Grave version on that is so evil. I mean, just that
especially
the feedback and stuff at the end. Woo, 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 woo.
Oh, I was just gonna say the spooky part at the end. As a kid, that scared the crap out of me.
It was evil.
So, Chris, you had your number 3, and I guess I'm next in line. I guess so. I'm going to go ahead of everyone. I'm going next. I've got a tie for number 3. I'm cheating tonight.
Nice.
Tie is a favorite. It's between two 1970 releases. A self-titled release that birthed heavy metal with the opening track, the hauntingly evil Black Sabbath.
Ooh.
The Wizard, NIB, and I have my prop. I've totally come unprepared tonight with one prop, and of course the other album released that year was Paranoid. Starting off with the anti-war anthem, War Pigs. This is another one where you guys said is kind of played out, but if we're talking Black Sabbath, you have to give it the credit. It is, even though it is played out a bit, of course, but how great are those songs? Paranoid, the driving radio hit, Paranoid. I guess it's a radio hit. The mellow, smooth stuff.
Yes, about it.
Yeah, it's their only radio hit.
Planet Caravan.
Fucking love that song.
The Doom-driven Hand of Doom, the iconic Iron Man, and of course, one of the best Black Sabbath songs ever, I think, is Electric Funeral. Off of Paranoid. Both of those albums are masterpieces. I think most of these albums we're talking about are pretty much masterpieces. There's not too many really bad songs in any of these albums. There is some atmospheric stuff at times, but that's my third choices there. I cheated and I popped 2 in.
Nice. Well, there was actually Paranoid does have 2 different release dates. It came out in October 1970 in England, but Warner Brothers in the States pushed it back till I think January or February of 71 because the first Black Sabbath record was still selling so well in the States.
Oh, okay.
They wanted to push it out a little bit. So, just an interesting thing that, right from the get-go, they were doing well.
Years when that calendar comes up, sometimes you see it coming out in November, and other people have it coming out, later on, earlier in the year. Cool. So I'm gonna go with Andrew Freeman next.
Oh, all right.
Unless you're not ready, I could go with John.
No, I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready. So honorable mention first. Technical Ecstasy.
Yes.
I love it. But mostly, one thing I do love about it the most is the album cover, because it was
crazy.
It's just fucking. It's like I don't know what's that style of art. It's insane looking on the front. And was that Art Deco, right? It's Art Deco. Yeah. So it always attracted my attention. And I really, really wanted to like it, but I don't think I liked it very much. But I do remember it, the album cover just always catching my eye. So there you go. So number 3 for me is Volume 4.
Great one.
Yeah, I love Volume 4. And forgive me because I'm getting all my things mixed because I'm doing this right off the top of my head. Supernova and Snowblind were on my favorite song. So I'm a huge fan of Supernova, and I loved and hated the cover. Somebody did a cover of it. Was it like later on, like in the 90s or something? Somebody
Ministry covered Supernova?
No, it was 1,000 Homo DJs, I think, which was
which is Al Jorgensen from Ministry.
Oh, okay, yeah. And it kind of, I loved it and I hated it because it kind of renewed my interest in it. But it made me I liked it, but then made me go back and revisit the record, as an adult. So I was thankful for that. But yeah, Volume 4 is my number 3 with honorable mention of Technical Ecstasy.
Technical Ecstasy. I bought Technical Ecstasy and no one's going to know what this is unless they lived in Middletown at Lloyd's department store.
Yeah.
The day it came out, like, you would know, back then you'd know what record came out on whatever it was, Tuesday, I think back then.
Yeah, Tuesday.
So you'd go there, like, it was high school days. And I remember, like, wow, that's a weird album cover, and it was like, what is this that Black Sabbath did, But I remember picking that up day of release, so that's how old I am. So
nice.
Awesome.
Love it.
Chris just joined us. Welcome, Chris. And
did you pick that up with some of the Lloyd's ribs though? Did that come with that?
Yeah. I mean, if people that aren't watching this show that aren't from the area, Lloyd's was like the first ever like Walmart. There was a department store in Middletown that had everything, toy department, just like a Walmart would have now. And actually a pretty good restaurant too.
They had I was just gonna say they had a nice little like luncheonette sort of restaurant.
Yeah. My parents would eat there every Friday night before we'd go shopping, and they had a little arcade even back.
And every single one of their registers had a human being working at it.
My mother
didn't have 50 lines. Didn't have 50 lines that had no one working, and a checkout that had 400 people standing there with one person trying to tell them how to fill their bags. So.
So
kind of sounds like a Grandway. I don't know if you had Grandway by you at the time.
No,
not there, but
it's similar.
It's similar, yeah.
My mother used to work at Lloyd's. So.
Oh, did he? Cool.
My mother did. Yeah.
Isn't Lloyd's a shop right now, or is that what it?
Well, ShopRite is where Lloyd stood. Yeah, on 211. Yeah. So anyhow, Will Carroll, we're gonna bring you on and find out what your number 3 album is in the Black Sabbath, and anything else you'd like to add to start off tonight?
Number 3 is Sabbath Bloody Sabbath.
Great one.
I think of all the Ozzy albums, that's the most evil album, especially lyrically. Like songs like "Who Are You" really creep me. And I think Ozzy wrote the lyrics to that song, which is pretty cool. That's probably my favorite song on the album. But like "Killing Yourself to Live" is amazing. Every part is great. The lyrics are great. The only thing I think the only like Achilles heel for the album is the drum production. It's a little thin and just not as like the drums on Paranoid sound awesome and dry and natural. And then by Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, the drum tones, I don't know what happened, but they're just it's kind of like an afterthought with the production. For the drums, but his playing is great, and he's doing a lot of experimentation with double bass. He starts on volume 4 and continues, especially on Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. So I just like the broad scope of the album. It's like the most psychedelic album, and just like the orchestration at the end of the album, everything, man. It's definitely a step above what they were doing before, like a huge step forward. And I think they did it well, man. It's great. And the album cover is my favorite Ozzy era.
Great album cover.
Yeah.
As we said. Cool. Who wants to go next? John, you wanna you're next in line, I guess, because you got here, and then we'll go with Chris for.
Yeah, it's cool.
I mean, whatever. Is Andy the last in line, or was he the first in line?
He doesn't like that joke. I get yelled at it every week.
Yeah, don't be a fucking dick, Chris.
I wasn't being a dick. Where were you yesterday? You were not here for Manowar, so you get.
Oh, was Manowar yesterday?
I didn't know if you wanted to do Manowar.
I don't really know a lot of Manowar. I just know Blow Your Speakers, and my friend sings for Ross the Boss now. So.
Oh, cool.
That's all I know.
Yeah,
that's all I know, really. I remember Blow Your Speakers, and they were all, in the loincloths and stuff. I know how important they are, but I just, it was a little too homoerotic for me.
Yes, for that one. Well, anyhow.
A little too homoerotic for me. I'm sorry. And I was questioning sexuality the whole time, especially with their bass player. So it was.
Yeah, Will didn't want to do Manowar either.
I like Manowar. I just don't think I could give an educated opinion on all their albums for 2 hours.
We
I
do
do like that.
That's why I showed up 10:15.
I could do about 3 minutes of maybe a minute and a half of Manowar.
I had that one worked out perfectly. I showed up right at the end.
Chris has it figured out. All right, John. Let's get to John here, and we'll get his number 3 album, and we'll move along.
My first question is that version of Techno Ecstasy you have? Is that a newer version, the gatefold?
It has to be.
Yeah, because I don't remember that either.
Mine isn't a gatefold.
I remember in the 70s. I did not. That photo was not in there. The painting of the four guys.
No.
No. I don't believe this was a gatefold when it came out in 78.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
Okay.
No.
I didn't think so. I didn't know. I mean, I picked mine up in probably the 80s when I bought it, but it was just a regular Warner Brothers version. But,
yeah, this is on Vertigo, and it is black vinyl. But yeah, cool.
But yeah, that's kind of my honorable mention because I really like that album a lot too. But my thing with Black Sabbath is I really like all the albums in the 70s. I think they're all just as good to me, and they're all just good in kind of their own way and stuff. So it's really difficult to choose. But I mean, honestly, for me, the first three are just a little played out for me. I love the songs, but I mean, I've heard them so many times, and every time they play live, they play the same damn songs off that album, and they have such an amazing discography, and it just kills me that they're just playing, the same songs. And I mean, if you're lucky, you get like a non,
like Hand of Doom or something.
Yeah, it's like, come on, dude. I mean, I love the songs, and it was great to watch them play, but after every time playing almost the same set.
Do you realize how difficult it is to get Ozzy to remember lyrics?
Oh, I know. He's reading even like Paranoid and stuff.
That's the X factor nobody gets with that. It's like you're doing as good as you can getting him to do the songs he's doing at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, tried to get it too weird, he'd have to be there with a piece of paper over it. It's like,
dude, when Death Angel opened for Metallica at the Fillmore a few years ago, Ozzy was there to do a couple of Sabbath songs with Metallica, and at sound check, Ozzy was walking on stage, and Metallica went into Symptom of the Universe without letting him know, and he looked like he was about to get hit by a train. He was so shocked, scared, and he started shaking, guys. I mean, like, what is this? What is this? And Jay cut it. He was like, hey, stop.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's hard. It's hard for some people to remember lyrics, and it's songs you haven't done in 40 years.
Yeah,
or it also leans into the same. I'm sorry, John. It also leans into the same situation of something like how Rush, like Geddy just couldn't do stuff from some of those albums in the 70s, as Ozzy probably couldn't do anything from Sabotage or Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. So we never saw anything in those sets, right, Chris, from the later years.
I was going to say, when I saw one of the last shows I saw on the End tour, I got this VIP ticket thing, and they let you in to watch Sabbath sound check. They brought us in, and we watched Sabbath played Iron Man and something else, and then Ozzy walked off, and then the rest of Sabbath actually did Symptom of the Universe.
Wow.
Of course, without vocals.
I remember that.
I was like, holy shit, this is really cool to see this.
I'll pay for that.
Obviously they want to do it, but Ozzy can't hit those notes, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's like Geddy.
Well, have your friend do it.
We had freaking Steven Tyler he did Dream On and Sweet Emotion with us with TSO, and he had a teleprompter for those two songs.
Wow.
I believe it.
Come on. I mean, that's those two songs. You want to talk about songs somebody's played a lot? I mean, these guys just don't remember these lyrics. So that's the reason why Ozzy's not done any more than you've seen. Some of those songs he probably doesn't even remember that he sang on the record.
Yeah.
But he doesn't even remember the car ride over.
Well, let's not pick on Ozzy too much. John, let's go back to your number 3. Sorry.
Come on.
We're not picking on him.
Fuck you, Steve. Come on.
But so anyway,
if I had a golden ticket, he'd want to go with me to the freaking chocolate factory. That's all I.
If when I was younger, I would have picked one of the first, say, 4 albums or something as my favorite. But these days, it's like, when I listen to it, I only listen to the rare stuff, or not the rare stuff, the later stuff, just because I guess I haven't heard them quite as much. I mean, I know all those songs like the back of my hand, but it just, the ones on the first couple are just too you know, what like
oversaturated.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I have my prop here, but I don't know what. Okay, but I'm choosing Never Say Die.
Yes.
I have to do it because I love this album. I mean, I was just listening to it earlier today. Shockwaves, holy crap, is such a good song.
Awesome.
Great
Awesome.
record.
Junior's
That's
Eyes
one of
is
John
great.
Oliva's favorite Sabbath records. He's stolen a lot of songs off that album.
I really think it's a great album. I mean, it's different. I mean, you compare it to the first couple, different. It's different, but the fact is, it's still great. And I just love, you know, I mean, I'm just a huge Tony Iommi fan, so I just love hearing those riffs, and I think the guitar playing's awesome on it. I mean, some of the like the more jammy parts, and just like it has almost like a more of a jazzy feel at parts and stuff like that.
Yeah,
you know?
it does.
But I think it's a great album, and I jam it all the time. I mean, when I was younger, you know, I didn't really get it so much. You know, I mean, I probably got the album in the 80s and was kind of like, you know, Never Say Die might be good. The rest I didn't really care about. But now I like that. But probably in the, more of the 80s or 90s, I would have probably picked like a song like The Warning. But I guess I didn't even know that was a cover song. So, you know, but now I definitely would say Never Say Die is one of my favorites.
And it's been a really hard road, 2020 to 2021.
Hard road, yeah.
And there we go.
That's a song. That's a song for 2020.
That's probably my second favorite like album cover there too. Just
it's killer.
It's Black so fucking cool.
Management obviously likes it because they use it for every tour shirt.
Well, I was watching my kid play this. My kid's one of those Fortnite.
Yeah.
He was playing that game Fortnite pretty hardcore for a while.
Yeah.
And and the thing on that is they give you the game for free, but then you buy all these skins, you know, like you can buy like different outfits for all the characters. And so he's like, Dad, can I get this one? Hey, Dad, can I get this one? So I'm like, motherfucker, you keep spending all this money on this garbage. Just use, you know, the 100 that you have. So he's going through them, and I see this one that is the guy from the cover of the Never Say Die record. Like they use that as a character. At least I think they did. And I said, well, and as he's going through, he goes past, like, whoa, go back. And he goes back to it. I said, you can get that one. That one you can get, you know? He's like, well, what is that? I go, that's the cover of a fucking Black Sabbath. Well, not fucking. I said, that's the cover of Black Sabbath album. You know, like, I got the cover up. I said, yeah, you can get that one. You know, again, whatever one that looks like that, we can do that one. So I just kind of found it funny that they used that. Somebody is, you know, obviously a metalhead who's designing that game. And it seemed like they took the character off of that album and used it for one of their characters in the game, which was really mad cool, I thought. So
yeah, it's different.
Anyway, fun fact.
Fun fact. Cool. I think it's great that they have all the merch with that character on it. You know, I think it's killer. Just a bummer. I wish I would hear one of those songs, but I know it's impossible. But
it's just so Chris has to buy that shirt
is probably
too.
My favorite. Yeah, I mean, Shockwave is my favorite song off that album.
Shockwave.
Yeah, and I would love to hear that song live. It would just be such a cool, just out of nowhere song.
Have you ever heard the Cathedral version of Shockwave?
No, I haven't.
No.
I gotta check that out. That's sick.
It didn't turn out that good.
No. I didn't work.
I mean,
well, thanks for warning me then.
We were gonna rush out and listen to it after the show, but now we put it back a little.
I heard some like live bootlegs from that Never Say Die tour where they played it live. I don't know if they played on the whole tour because I don't know the whole set list, but I heard some live versions of that, and it was really sick. Actually, after hearing the live version, it kind of made me realize how awesome of a song it is.
Yeah, I got a bootleg, I think, from Memphis, Tennessee.
That might be it.
That has Shockwave on it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cool.
Well,
do you have the bootleg from Miami, Florida when they did Air Dance? No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
that one was already anybody. I mean, there's two Chris's, so I got Alo probably has it. I have to go by last names. There's two Chris's in the room. So, Chris Caffery, welcome to the opening statement. And what is your third favorite Black Sabbath album with Ozzy?
That's a hard one for me to say. What the third favorite? There's like an obvious number one for this for me. That's always going to be number one. And there's like the twos and threes kind of float around because it's kind of one of these things depending on what mood you're in. So it's really difficult for me. I mean, it's like the last one can actually be my third. I mean, just because it was a fun listen when you hadn't heard something for so long, and the end came out. I was just like, wow, it was fun to listen to. So it actually stands up there to me, you know, with some of those, just in the impact that I had on listening to something that was new from them for so long, because we had so many years of Dio putting out records and Sabbath doing tours and things like that. So it's really hard. It's hard for me to pick a third. I mean, I think a couple of the ones everybody just picked could have been my third. I mean, I like Paranoid a lot. There's just a lot of really great songs on it. You know, there's like, I'm gonna probably just wade through them all right now, is because I'm really bad at picking direction. But you know, it's too important to metal not to have the first Sabbath record as, I would put it at my number one if it was my favorite musically, but I think it's my number two because I think it's just the most important record in the history of metal as far as my opinion is on that. It came out, it was like, to me, that was the birth of everything that I wound up doing most of my life, and it was just very special. But I like the Paranoid record a lot. I really do. I mean, I like them all. It's really difficult because Tony Iommi's without a doubt probably my favorite riff writer in my whole life. I mean, I just love the way that guy wrote riffs. They were just so freaking cool. And I mean, and I just go to it. The Sabotage album to me is one of the greatest heavy metal records, period. Never mind just being a Sabbath album. That record is above and beyond anything I think Sabbath did through all the years.
Amazing,
I mean,
album.
That's like, to me, is the greatest creation that band had. I mean, they were peaking then, and they carried that peak into Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules. It's like that musical creativity that was in Sabotage was a peak for Iommi and them. I mean, they just really, they reached a point with metal where they took it to their own high for themselves. But I just think the way they took orchestrations and had the moods and the different tones and things that happened with the songs throughout that Sabotage record, it's like, to me, that if I had to, you know, go to an island with one metal record, it would probably be Black Sabbath Sabotage. So it's just, that cool. Was that good to me. I just think it's a statement in metal history that rises above most of what they did, and it's no offense to Ronnie or anything like that, but it was musically, it was just as good as those Dio records. It was a really special record, and Ozzy singing on that album, it's like,
totally.
That's some of the freaking highest and badass metal stuff ever. I mean, I know singers that can barely sing that are some of the greatest metal singers on the planet. You know, I've done a few cover shows doing a lot of those songs with Blitz from Overkill, and Blitz can get to that stuff, but that stuff's way up there in his range. It's just really, really, really brutal vocals on that record. So in my opinion, that was just that. So I'm kind of rushing through them all there because it's really hard for me to pick my second and third with the rest of it, because it could be at any given day what I Sabbath. But you know, I just think that that Sabotage record sits so far ahead for me as the number one that I was going to start backwards.
That's
and just
cool.
Let everybody else name their other records. But I
know how Chris works this out, because he'll just say, "Yeah, that's my number two." When Chris
me too. Exactly. So now I'm gonna have everybody else's two, and but my one is where, and it's like it's a heartbreaking thing for me, and I won't go into the details as of why, but in 1997, I think it was, or 8, whenever that was, when Ozzy came back into Sabotage, we had the European tour opening for that Black Sabbath, the first tour they had. We were doing their whole entire arena tour for the month of July that summer, and due to circumstances beyond my control, which I won't go into a lot of details with, we pulled off of that tour, and it was heartbreaking for me, man. I did not want to not do that.
Yeah, that would have been awesome.
And that, you know, one day, and that'll come out in the book. But, yeah, that was something for me. I was just like, man, we were going to be doing the first time. I mean, that was, for everybody, that was a long time since Ozzy had been in Sabbath. But it was, you know, just about 20 years, I think, at that time, since he'd been with that band. So it was
like 99, right? 98.
Yeah, but I did get to see a lot of the Billboard Sabbath shows, and I did festivals with them in Europe, and I just, I don't know if you guys saw that, but Ozzy sometimes used to sit there and introduce Bill Ward like 4 times when he was introduced in the band. Did you guys ever see that? When he'd be like, and on the drums, Bill Ward, and then yell, and then he'd walk away. Bill Ward, and he just keeps going for like 5 minutes, and he was so into what Ozzy was laughing at himself so hard that you had to laugh at Ozzy, and he just kept introducing Bill Ward for like 5 minutes, and it was so priceless. But those shows were really great to see. You know, we've been blessed with having a lot of these musicians as long as we have, but Ozzy's one for sure that you know, we've had a long time with him, and like I said, it's just hard for me to pick any one album besides Sabotage. That's my favorite.
Well, maybe he was just making sure that Bill Ward was still back there. Like he get, oh yeah, still here. There he is.
You might wonder sometimes.
Bill Ward, everybody, still
Bill Ward.
That was to let Vinny know, who was waiting backstage, that Bill was still out there.
Can I come out now?
He almost
Ward,
introduced.
still here.
He almost introduced Robert Mason, but he stopped. No.
We just started talking about Robert Mason when you weren't here.
So,
I knew Robert from. Did you know Robert out here when he was living this way, Andy? Did you know him then?
You know, I didn't. I knew his cousin. He had a cousin who lived in Middletown named Keith Kelly, and I met Robert when he was playing with Lynch Mob when they got back together for the Re-Evolution, the Downtune record that they did.
Yeah, I knew him out here before he flew out and to the Arizona thing, but I went to see him because me and my brother were looking for a singer at one point, and somebody introduced us, and I forget who it was, but I was like, wow, this guy's great. And then I hadn't heard from him, and all of a sudden I heard he was Ozzy. And I was just like,
yeah, he was Ozzy.
Robert Mason's Ozzy. I'm like, oh, awesome.
No, he's a great singer, man.
He is.
But who was he singing with in Jersey when he was there? Do you know, before he was in Lynch Mob?
I forget what he was doing. I went to see him, I think, at the China Club or something. He was doing something with some band, and they didn't play very long, and then before he moved, he played, and then the next thing I knew, he left and crossed the country. But yeah, Robert he's definitely a great singer.
Cool.
He did it. I mean, I know it's a side note, but he did a record with a band called Cry of Love. You remember Cry of Love?
Oh yeah.
He did he sang on their second record, and it is fucking just awesome, like just rootsy blues, Black Crowes type stuff. Just really, really good. Yeah, no, I think that's his best album. But anyway, I digress. Sorry, didn't mean to change the subject here, but
forget Black Sabbath. We're talking about Robert.
But to be fair, he was Ozzy at a lot of shows. So.
We're talking about a vocalist that was filling in behind the curtains, helping Ozzy sing along, right? Is that what we were saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but if I'm not mistaken, was that only for Ozzy solo shows?
I don't know.
That's what I thought it was. It was a couple of years, I thought, during the Ozzy solo years.
I don't think they I'm not really sure if they brought him out with the Sabbath thing. I think it was in the pipeline if they needed to, but Ozzy did most of the Sabbath shows and stuff. Because that stuff is so low. I think they might have tuned even low, but that was pretty low, especially the set that they did. It wasn't too high, for Ozzy. Ozzy solo records. Those songs were not easy ones to sing. I mean, he was all over on those songs. Those were great.
Yeah.
Those are great vocal songs.
So we're going to swing it back over to Chris Allen. I'm going to change up the format a little bit now. I think we're just going to
And I ruined it.
No, you're fine. It's awesome to have you on. Chris Alo, we're going to go back to you. And I think we're just going to do instead of going around a whole nother time, we're going to do this as a closing statement. And anybody can add anything at the end of the show. But do your last 2 albums, do your number 2 and your number 1 as we go around this time.
That's cool.
And of course, everybody add any input they like to add, and makes things go maybe a little smoother.
My second favorite Sabbath record. I mean, I definitely agree with John that the records are played to an extent, but at the same time, I mean, I still love them. So they're I'm still going with them. To me, they're my 3 favorite Sabbath records with from the Ozzy lineup. And number 2 for me would be the first Black Sabbath record, which came out February 13th, 1970.
That was literally mine.
It was before I was born. Man, it's a fucking amazing record. It's I'm no musical expert on other genres, but I don't know if there are other landmark albums that you could say that you could pinpoint to one particular release. Like, I don't know if there's a record that you could say, oh, that was the first country Western record. And, you know, that was the first fucking soul record. But, you know, without doubt, this is the first metal record.
It is,
all
exactly.
started from here.
I agree.
Exactly.
Move forward. So it's such a landmark, such an unbelievable record. You know, two side notes. Being a huge Sabbath fan, you know, I got this in the early '80s.
Yeah.
In the mid '80s, I started collecting and trading, and that's how I met Steve. Trading and collecting video cassettes and audio cassettes of live stuff, and I got some tape, and I had this song "Evil Woman," and I'm like, "What?" Yeah. Like, I had no idea that there was a different version of the record in the UK. And I thought that was super cool to have, and I think it's great that now it's on all, you know, all the regular versions has the full track listing. But also, I remember watching an interview with Tony Iommi on TV, where he was saying they were really unhappy with the British record company, which I guess was Vertigo, because the album came out and it had an upside down cross on the album cover, and I'm like, wow, what's he talking about? I had no idea. I'd never seen it before. And then when I flew to England in '92 to see Sabbath at the Hammersmith Odeon, and I went to a record store, and I actually found it. It's a gatefold of the first record, and the inside's all black, and it has this big silver. I have it. I should have dug it out down, and it's a big silver upside down cross with this weird satanic poem in it.
Oh wow!
And, of course, I bought it. But
I would have bought it too.
I got it in upstairs. But yeah, so that's my favorite number 2, and my all-time favorite record, Paranoid. It's played the shit, but
great record.
You know, it's the record that changed my life. You know, I was a quiet, shy kid, you know, and I was into pro wrestling and comic books, but then this got me into heavy metal, and being into heavy metal got me lots of friends and got me girls and got me all sorts of shit. So this record changed my life.
I don't know. I played in Savatage when the freaking Motley Crue was out. We did not have Oliva did not nearly bring the girls into metal. Everybody else. There's a big difference in the Hall of the Mountain King video. Girls. We brought the midgets and the weird people. We had the midgets and the weird people at our shows. Girls.
That weirdness didn't get you laid, Chris. That's sad.
No, it was still, you know what, at that time there was still women even at the Savatage shows. I'm
sure.
Yeah, in an era in an era where everybody was getting laid, Chris didn't get laid.
No. It wasn't too difficult, because if there was a girl there, you were able to pick them up with a
Well, you were kind of the young, you know, high cheekbone sexy guy in the band. So I imagine you got I imagine you got all the fat girls. So.
No, it was funny. If you ever do something with Oliva, Steve, it would be really funny to hear some of his stories. You should hear the stories.
I would love to do what we were
hear the stories of the Hall of the Mountain King video shoot would be.
So Chris, if you'd like to do that down the road, Robin Mason, you know, it's on the show a lot. She really wants to do a Sabotage episode. So if you're down for that, down in a few weeks, we could definitely put it together.
Yeah, I don't know if you could be able to get Oliva to do Zoom on it. I think he just learned how to use a computer last year. We'll get together. He's worse than my mom, so I think we could probably dig some people out there. We might be able to. Maybe we could get Dr. Killdrums out of retire. But then again, he'll wind up saying a bunch of things that.
We'll talk about that down the road for sure. Chris Alo, do you have anything to add for the finals for your? I guess you said Paranoid, so you're good.
Yeah, I mean, those are definitely record life-changing records, and if you don't have them, then you probably shouldn't be watching the Rock.
You don't have these records. I mean, unless you're learning about Black Sabbath for the first time with this program, which is awesome. But I don't think you are.
Right.
Yeah, they're mandatory. Yeah.
So
there's people watching right now, Steve, that think Killers is a Sabbath record. Looking behind you.
Yeah, they do.
You got to see. You got.
Yeah. Well, that's a shameless promo for Friday's episode. So so I guess I'll go with mine and finish up my 2 and 1, and we'll go down to Andrew and around the bend. And my second favorite album is 1973's Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. A little bit about that record that I read stuff today that I did remember back in the day, but it refreshed my memory. They rehearsed in a dungeon on that album. They rented out Clearwater Castle in the Forest of Dean in Gloucestershire, England, a place where Led Zeppelin, Mott the Hoople, and Deep Purple had wrote and recorded records. The medieval surroundings, they said, revitalized the band musically, but it also left a sinister impression because someone said earlier that was like the most evil album.
Yeah.
In the armory there, and they said they were walking down the corridor with Ozzy, and they saw a figure in a black coat.
There it is. Yep.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Yep.
He dug it out. So they followed this figure back into the armory, and there's absolutely no one there. Whoever it was had dissipated into thin air. The people who owned the castle knew all about the ghost, and they said that's the ghost of so and so. And Butler was like, we rehearsed in the dungeons. It was really creepy, but it had the atmosphere that conjured up things, and the stuff started coming out again. While working in the dungeon, I only stumbled onto the main riff of Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, which set the tone for the new material. And they were saying that they were like really creeped out being in this castle, and they actually drove back and forth home every night. They didn't stay there. And if they did stay there, they played practical jokes on each other. They said, to be honest, it frightened the life out of each other. When they leave in the end, everybody was terrified of each other because they were playing jokes on everyone, and nobody knew who was doing it. They used to leave and drive all the way back home and drive back the next day, which was really silly. In his autobiography, Osbourne talks about, we weren't so much the lords of darkness, but lords of chicken shit when it came to that kind of thing. we would end up, so none of us got any sleep. You would just lie there with your eyes wide open, expecting an empty suit of armor to walk into your bedroom or anything like that. So, and they said Bill Ward typically got the worst of it. The drummer eventually going to bed when they stayed over there at night with a dagger in his hand. So I thought it was a total masterpiece of an album, in my opinion, opening with Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, National Acrobat, I love, of course, Sabracadabra. Then side 2 kicks off with Killing Yourself to Live. And the atmospheric, Will said before, the Who Are You, Looking for the Day. And I think Spiral Architect is like one of their best songs.
Great track.
Oh yeah.
Did you say Lords of Chicken Shit? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's what he said. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really weird because today I wanted to make an announcement. I'm announcing a new band. It's myself, Will, Chris, and John. We're called the Lords of Chicken Shit. So that's our new. Look out for us! Look out for us next year. We're going to take over the world. The Lords of Chicken Shit.
Sounds good. I mean, Rock.
He's not egging you on neither with that. He's not egging you on. That's real.
Rock Fantasy will gladly sponsor that project. I'll get you
fantastic
soda.
We have some scratch tracks that I've heard from that.
Rock Fantasy shirts.
There's a little chicken scratch that's out there somewhere if you want to find it.
Well, on Monday nights, Hudson Valley Squares show, we actually had a new, what was it, necrotic gallbladder, I think.
Necrotic gallbladder, yeah.
Lynn's new death metal outfit, because Lynn actually had to go in and had surgery and had her gallbladder taken out. So she was describing the whole detail on Monday night's episode if you want to check it out. But my number 1 is Sabotage. Me and Chris are channeling the same album, starting off with the amazing Hole in the Sky, Symptom of the Universe, a song that may have given the birth to thrash metal too, because you talk about that. I've read many people saying that was like one of the first thrash metal, like that riff and everything coming out of it. And the spacey epic Megalomania. Throw of it all.
Amazing.
And the writ. I mean, this.
Yeah, there's a great riff.
I really started getting into this Sabbath with this album. I came in a little late. I mean, I'm 60 now. In the early days of like 1970, I was still listening to AM radio and a lot of R&B and stuff. But this was one, I think one of the first ones I actually bought in a store and brought home. I mean, I listened to it in a room that looked just like this with black light posters, and it was just something epic, and I love it. And of course, my honorable mention would be Never Say Die. Sorry, Chris Alo. Chris Alo, that record, he puts Forbidden ahead of it even, and I think it's ludicrous. He made me almost die the night we did the episode with that. But and of course, it's good that we can joke back and forth. And even Caffery likes the record, so he's almost outvoted in this room right now.
I like it too. I like the cover.
Who doesn't like Never Say Die? Raise their hand. Whoa, we got him. Well, anyhow, so we're gonna. That's my thing, and I mean, this is one of the bands I'm really passionate about. And Chris wasn't on in the beginning of this episode, and it's like having 9 kids and deciding you're only going to feed 3, and you got to pick out which ones you want to pick out. And that happens a lot when we do these ranking things, anyhow, with some of these bands that you're really passionate about. And I don't think Sabbath really did a bad album with Ozzy.
I think
including the 13 comeback. I mean, that was a great album too, I think, you know.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the tempos were a little slow.
Yeah.
It was just a really good. It was a cool return. You know, Tony still has it. He's still got riffs in him. I mean, I've heard from a lot of people that he still has just like hundreds and hundreds of songs that have never been finished and released.
Yeah,
got so many riffs, and they're all.
So that's just perfect, because then Andrew could sing some of them, and Rob Halford could sing some of them, and right.
And the cool thing about that is he never has to worry about somebody saying they stole from Tony Iommi, because he's able to steal from himself. So,
like, very true.
He can rip himself off anytime he wants to.
I never got to see them in the original deal back in the 70s. I only started seeing Sabbath when Dio was in the band. And then my first time of seeing the Sabbath was in the reunion at the Meadowlands Arena with Pantera and the Deftones opening up. That was my first exposure of seeing the 4. Then I got to see them a bunch of times on the Ozfest and all that stuff. And of course, then the End tour and the 13 tour. I got to see them. I haven't seen them as many times as Chris has. I think Chris has got the record in the room tonight. But
I actually today I was looking through. I actually found a box of cassettes, and I go through and because I never labeled anything. I have like hundreds of cassettes that have no labels on them, and I was looking for actually a demo thing that I wanted to find something on, and I found a Sabbath live cassette that I had from one of the first 2 shows that Ray Gillen did with Sabbath, and I had a tape that I got from Ray from that. I have a full concert, and the tape is in really good shape, and I was listening to him do War Pigs today. Holy Jesus, was that freaking brutal.
I was just going to ask you about that, because I remember don't you have the demos when he sang with Sabbath?
Yeah, I had it was funny, I was in David Krebs' office, and Ray walked in, and David's sitting there with his sunglasses on, smoking pot, and Ray walks in with his freaking tape, and he just got back from England, and he was playing us songs from that Eternal Idol record. And he's like, the first one, David he liked it, but he wasn't blown away with it. I forget which one was the first one, but then he had The Shining. He was going to play The Shining. He goes, well, I think you're going to love this one, David, because he said, this one really sounds a lot like Black Sabbath. And I just remember David Krebs sitting there in his chair with his sunglasses on. He goes, which is usually pretty important when you're working on a Black Sabbath record. And it was just so funny to hear that come out of him. But yeah, I have one of the original demos from that, but I found a really good cassette tape. I don't know if it was a board tape or whatever it was, because I was listening. I have a crappy player that like it was just listening to Ray do War Pigs. It was like, holy fuck, man, that guy.
That's probably awesome.
I'd love to hear.
Well, speaking of other singers with Sabbath, I was at the Black Sabbath show, which was part of the Ozfest tour. I think Chris was there too. We were at the Camden amphitheater down in New Jersey, and I remember a lot of people that are in the room here know Chris Kishka, who was at the show, and I don't know, he was doing something with one of the bands. And he comes walking up to me, and I don't know who was playing. It was a stacked lineup. I think that Judas Priest were there, Slayer was there, Dimmu Borgir was there, and I'm like, he goes, Steve, you better leave. I'm like, you know, he's security, whatever, with somebody. He was doing something. And I said, what do you mean I'll leave? He goes, Black Sabbath isn't going to play tonight. There's going to be a riot. And I'm like, really? Chris Alo, were you at that show too?
No, you called me, and I was so bummed because you
So-
called kind of late in the day, and I was figuring out the math, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm 3 hours away. Like, if
then I found out, yeah. And then, then I found out that, well, Rob Halford was going to fill in impromptu, and he did the gig that night. And I just remember I had like a really good VIP ticket. I was down in the pit part, and it was kind of amazing because there was, it was an Ozfest from back in the 2000s, and there was probably like 30 bands. And I tell you, almost probably everybody from every one of those bands was in that pit area watching that show. I'm talking Slayer and Dimmu and all the hardcore bands and deathcore bands. Everybody was down there watching it. I remember like Randy Blythe was standing right next to me watching the show, and it was I guess that's my Black Sabbath live story. So
yeah, actually I'm sorry, the Philly, the Pittsburgh show was right after that show. It was a few days. They had a few days off, and I remember I was my fingers crossed it was going to be
Halford is going to.
I would have felt the same way.
I was so hoping, and
just because it was kind of history making,
Well, it would have sounded better too, but I mean, but because I have a bootleg of that Costa Mesa show, and I was just like, wow, this would really be great history to see that happen a second time.
Then it happened again, yeah.
Ozzy came out, and I was like, oh.
It's all better. And
then it was just like, okay, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna hear the same 5 songs I've heard every time.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being at a Black Sabbath show and being disappointed when Ozzy walks out on stage?
It's not Tony
that's me.
Wow.
Ozzy's very cool. I've only had one experience of hanging out with Ozzy. It's funny because we were both in the Rainbow and we were both waiting for people to show up. So Ozzy was there and I was there, and we were at a table next to each other, and he called me over to him, and I drank with Ozzy for an hour, and it was probably one of the most like relaxed conversations I ever had. But the whole time he was there, he kept talking about Randy a lot, and I forget what stage he was in his career. I think it might have been part, right around he might have been in the Jake time or out of the Jake time or something, but he just kept talking about how much the Blizzard of Oz band felt like a band to him more than his solo band did after that. And he was, and he was really successful at that time. And he was just saying, it's not the fucking same, man. I'm playing the shows, but it's not the fucking same. He says, when it was with fucking Randy, it was a fucking band. I can't expect. And he was just kept telling me how much he missed the feeling he had of a band. And that's the cool thing about Ozzy. He's so genuine. That guy, he's the real deal. I mean, whether or not he put the best shows on that people saw of what he did, but he was so genuine. And that's something that I think carried him through everything he ever did, was when people saw him, he was just like, he was this thing, he was a positive energy on stage. And that's Sabbath had that. You watch those old videos of Sabbath and those stadium shows, and he's up there with that fringe shirt on, and he's just doing his thing. And he's super uncoordinated and danced whiter than any of us alive, and it was like cool shit. It was like he was the worst white dancer ever. Was Ozzy?
The water, the buckets of water, throwing buckets of water on you in the front and dumping the bucket of water over his head, all that stuff.
Yeah, but for whatever worse, that was my Ozzy moment. He told me, he goes, "You remind me a lot of Randy in some ways." I'm like, yeah, but I didn't get the gig, so
yeah. Well, I mean, they're all bands. They're all bands when these guys go solo. I mean, Dio was the same way. Like, they're all bands.
Yeah.
And then they start making money, and then it's it's a solo act now.
Yeah.
Now it's a solo act. When I needed you to work for $100 a week, it's a band, and we're all putting in the time and the commitment, to get to another place. And then, the wife manager comes in and fucks everybody over, and then people start leaving. You know what I mean? And that's Ozzy and that's Dio. You got a wife.
Yeah, well,
it's
exactly what happened, because you all start out and you're making so much more money than you ever did in your life because you're playing with Ozzy and you're doing this, and then all of a sudden he's like, yeah, and then when it goes to the arenas, we're all going to make tons of money, and then they get to the arenas and everybody's making exactly what they were, and they're like, somebody's making this money.
It's funny,
you always do the same. You hear the same excuse. Oh, do you have any idea what this tour costs to put on the road now?
Oh, yeah.
Like, come on.
Well, you'll hear the same thing from all. I mean, you might not hear it on officially, but you hear the same thing from all those guys who've been in Ozzy's band and guys who've been in Dio's band. It's just like, they get to a certain point and that's it, and maybe we can get some of that out of Phil next week when he's here.
Yeah.
All right, let's try.
Some of the stories he tells me when nobody's around,
Hey, Andrew, so it's your turn to pick your final.
It is my turn. Look at that.
And then we're going to go to Will, and then we'll go to John and Chris, and we'll.
Okay, so we've talked about my number 2 is Masters of Reality. And we talked about that at length at the beginning of the show. So mine too. My favorite on that is obviously I said was Sweet Leaf, obviously, because that was the one that had the most effect on me. We had the vinyl, and it just the coughing at the beginning again, and what the fuck is he talking about? I want to know what this Sweet Leaf is. I'm 9 years old, 8 years old. What is Sweet Leaf? I want to know everything that's going on here. So I won't get into that too much because we already talked about that. My favorite from the Poser is basically the Greatest Hits album, which is Paranoid.
The greatest.
Yeah.
Paranoid.
Not surprised.
The first. What do you mean not surprised? Fuck you.
Electric
No,
funeral.
And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you with my favorite song by Sabbath, like all out of all of them is War Pigs, and it's because of
Me too.
To me, both Ozzy and Ronnie Dio were both. They're like blues singers. You know what I mean? They're not.
Yeah.
They're not like nobody had a nobody had a blueprint on how to be a metal singer. So and you can tell like in the bass playing too. Like the bass playing, all those bands you can tell like the singing and the bass playing. Because nobody plays bass like Geezer anymore. Nobody plays bass like like Jimmy Bain did. Like those type of bass players are guys who learn from like James Jamerson and Bootsy Collins and those type of guys, like 60s and 70s funk and soul guys. That's where these guys learn how to play bass. And a lot of guys that we play with now later are just pick guys that are they don't know how to run the neck, going up and down the neck and make something move besides, what they do is they follow the guitar line. I mean, Chris can attest to this, John can probably attest to this, Will as well. It's like, when a guy knows how to play bass as an instrument, you know what I mean? And then the guy who comes in, like me, I'm not that kind of bass player. When I play bass, I'm more like I play with a pick because my fingers aren't strong enough. I don't trust them. And I just kind of follow the root note. I try to move around a little bit, but I know my limitations and I stick to it, but those guys, there's a few guys that still play like that, and Geezer's one of them. Hugh McDonald's another guy who plays like that. They're just a rare breed anymore because they're not in rock and metal anymore. Rob DeLuca plays like that who plays in UFO now. He's in Spread Eagle. Those are just the guys off the top of my head, but that's what I'm getting at with War Pigs because it's this huge metal song and it when Ozzy comes in and starts singing, he's singing, you know what I mean? And I hate it when people like slag Ozzy for his voice, like Ozzy and even like say another guy gets slagged a lot is David Lee Roth, and completely unrelated, but they come from they have different influences. You know what I mean? They have different influences. Like if you sit down and listen to an Ozzy interview, he wanted to be John Lennon. You know what I mean? He wanted to be like the Beatles. That was his biggest influence. So, they came up at a different time than all of us did, and they influenced us. But, think about what influenced them. what made them, write these songs. And so when Ozzy comes in with a generals gathered in their masses, it's, I don't know. It's to me, that's a blues singer. You know what I mean? It's a low register blues singer, and what that song's become over the years live with the, whoa,
we can almost do karaoke here. I'm ready to start.
What's that?
I'm ready to add the next verse. We'll go around like Bohemian Rhapsody if you're ready.
Well, it looks like to me that you're ready to masturbate right now. So
I'm gonna shut up straight.
No, sit back and put your head back. It looks like you're getting a blowjob. You're like, yeah, listen.
There's no girls here.
Keep talking. So that is my favorite song of all time because, it's often imitated but never duplicated. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And my two favorite biggest Black Sabbath songs are, one by Ozzy, one by Dio, and that one and Heaven and Hell, and they're both kind of similar to me because it's basically the band sits back and lets the singer do his thing, but then when it's time to go, Geezer just runs the fretboard through the whole fucking song. He just runs the fretboard, and I don't think Geezer and I don't think Geezer gets the credit. Tony gets a lot of credit. Of course, he riffs and all that, but we all know that Tony's kind of limited in his solo playing, because of his fingertips being cut off and all that. He's got metal things. So the guy who's really soloing and fucking ripping it up that whole song is Geezer. At the end, if you listen to the bass line at the end of that song as it's the outro, it's to me it's just perfection, and it's every soul and every soul bass player from the 60s in that song. So
nice.
That is my off the top of my head kind of thought out description of
you did a swell job, sir.
I agree.
It saves me for not being prepared.
Chris Alo had your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to add onto what Andrew said with the part in the end with singing along at the end of War Pigs. Everybody kind of forgets that Ronnie is the one that came up with that.
Oh, is he? Yeah.
That's true. Ozzy never did that in the 70s. Yeah. Ronnie started to do it in the 80s. And off the top of my head, I can't remember if Ray Gillen and Ian Gillan and everybody else did it. But to me, it's so funny that
Ray was doing it.
Ian Gillan did it too.
Gotcha. It's just so funny that Ozzy, once he rejoined Sabbath, he would do it. And I just think it's so funny that nobody ever told him, well, geez, you're kind of doing what Ronnie did.
Yeah. Well, Ray did Ray's versions of the old Sabbath was Ronnie's versions of the old Sabbath. When Ray sang with Sabbath, he was doing whatever Ronnie did with those songs, and then of course he was filling in for Glenn Hughes, who lost his voice on that.
Glenn Hughes, yeah.
Ray sang he did the Seven Star stuff great. I mean, because Ray was able, Hughes was one of Ray's biggest influences. So.
But that's the thing, like going forward, the best guys that replaced Ozzy and Ronnie were like more bluesy type singers like Glenn Hughes and Ray Gillan and Ian Gillan. I mean, the Ian Gillan record, fuck, dude, I know it's not like a big deal.
It's
Nobody
a great
really.
Album.
It's a big deal to me.
Great fucking album, dude. Great album. But it was always that kind of singer, a soulful, sort of a thing. And honestly, I don't think that's something that they, if they could have got, an 80s sort of guy back in the day when they were trying to revamp the brand, like Ron, wasn't Ron Keel singing for them for a hot minute?
Yeah.
He tried out.
Yeah. Just imagine how that would have turned out.
Oh my God. Can you imagine, dude? Ron's a really great guy too. He's a super nice guy, but it's just like, I don't know if this is for you, dude.
I would like to hear it though.
Oh sure,
I like the Right to Rock.
Everybody, wow. John, did you really say that? Fight for it! What's the death metal community gonna do with you now, John?
Keel. I was digging Keel back in the day.
Fuck yeah, dude, Keel. Fuck yeah,
bro.
I want to just mention as far as on those first, probably the first 3 Sabbath albums. I mean, that bass was wailing on that. Just brought it up thinking about it with War Pigs. I mean, there's basically bass solos throughout that whole thing, which I think are really cool. And
he wrote this. He wrote this.
and another thing that made me think about with War Pigs, it's kind of weird, but I actually like the 80s versions that they do of War Pigs more than the Ozzy versions of it, like with Dio, with Ian Gillan or Ray Gillan. Because I have bootlegs from all that time.
Tony Martin.
Yeah, Tony Martin. For some reason it just seems like they do it like even doomier and heavier. Just to me, it's just a little more gritty, or I don't know. Maybe I like it because more metal, less bluesy or something. But I just thought it was for me. I just every time I hear it in the '80s context of like one of those bootlegs, I'm just like yes. And I mean, it was good when I seen him with Ozzy, but I didn't see him with Ozzy until the late '90s and 2000s. It was still
same
good.
with me.
But I don't know, some reason I just like that guitar tone, like on Live Evil when it comes in. It just sounds so heavy,
Since we're talking about War Pigs, I do remember seeing Sabbath on that Sabbath Pantera tour, their comeback tour with Ozzy, and they opened with War Pigs, and Bill Ward was completely lost. Mid first verse. It was really rough. It was a rough intro, man. Oh.
You're up anyhow, Willie. So if you want to tell us your final 2 albums there.
Before I tell my final 2, there's a song I forgot to talk about on my number 3 pick, Sabbath Black Sabbath, National Acrobat. It's really weird. I used to hate that song. For some reason, I didn't like the opening riff. I thought it sounded forced or something. And then a couple of years later, like I was getting stoned with some friends and I had this epiphany. And that song's amazing. So
and you finally got the same frame of mind as when they wrote it.
Sometimes a little marijuana.
There weren't any ghosts in that castle. They were all fucked up on mushrooms.
And also
get to the reality of these situations.
We talked about the album cover, but the back album cover is really awesome as well. And that's kind of a lost thing in heavy metal when artists do a piece of art for the back cover as well. Most albums now, the back cover is just a blown up part of the front cover, with the song titles over it. But I like when it's a piece of art. And the back cover with the dude's lying in bed, he's dead, and God's above him. It's just so heavy, awesome. Man. So heavy. So number 2 and number 3 are number 2 is Volume 4. There's a huge jump from Master Reality to Volume 4. Bill Ward's using double bass, and he's going off on Wheels of Confusion. At the end of Wheels of Confusion, on the second half, it's called the Straightener. He's fucking going off on double bass at the end there, man. Killer. It's a shame the album's mixed the way it is. The bass drums are so low in the mix, so you have to wear headphones and just it's there. You can barely hear it, but he's doing awesome double bass patterns. And just the album in general, it's just heavier, I think, than the first 3. Under the Sun, St. Vitus Dance, all those songs, man, are just fucking
great album, man. It should have been higher on my list for sure.
Yeah. And number 1, and everyone's already talked about it, but Sabotage for sure. Just the heaviest of all of them. And I think the opening track,
Hole in the Sky.
Oh, God damn it! That's the best opening track on a Sabbath album. I think. Megalomania and the Writ. The Writ's a pretty creepy ending to the album. And the end, that little piece of a piano with them singing around the piano. It's really faint. Like you have to turn up your stereo all the way or turn your headphones all the way just to hear.
I love that.
That used to. It's out, man.
Well, that really, one is like, when Andy was saying that Ozzy doesn't get the credit as a vocalist, I think any singer that complains about Ozzy singing, I'd love to hear them try to sing that album. And
it's the thing with Ozzy, dude. Ozzy
had like a legendary vocalist.
He had a great voice, and he also his phrase. Like I'm big on phrasings. Like I love a lot of rap stuff. And I like lots of styles of music just because of the phrasing and the musicality of it and the timing of things, the push and pull of it and trying to make it interesting. And Ozzy always had, he was always interesting. The one thing I didn't mention on the record out on Paranoid is nobody's really mentioned is Fairies Wear Boots.
How do we not mention that? Right?
That fucking song is everything I was talking about with Ozzy and Geezer, the combination of Ozzy Geezer, which I think are the shining stars of the band, a lot of the times because they complement each other so well. And you would see there's times where, like when I sing, I like to catch the bass drum a lot. Like I like to lock in with the kick drum a lot, you know? And I think I kind of learned that from Ozzy in a sense, because he was very in tune with what the rhythm section was doing, you know?
Yeah.
And Fairies Wear Boots is a good example of that. And he doesn't get the credit because he's fucking reality TV guy. And one more thing I want to say about this too, is that Ozzy was the guy when we were kids and we went to the fucking little stand in the middle of the mall where they make remember the t-shirts where you get the decals put on it, right?
Jersey Shore, yeah.
Yeah, I remember at the mall in Middletown, they had one, and I had this Ozzy shirt, and I used to get into fights in school about Ozzy. You know what I mean? Because Ozzy was the most evil fucking thing on the planet. He was the most evil person on the planet. Like, fuck Marilyn Manson, fuck Trent Reznor, like fuck all these guys, fuck Cradle of Filth, fuck these, bands that are supposed to be like, or what's his name from the Church Burners, I know they're terrible people too, but like what's the bass player's name?
Ozzy's a Prince of Darkness.
What's the crazy guy who was in that God, what the fuck is it? Abath. Like Abath. Like fuck Abath, not literally, because I don't want him coming to my house.
You're talking more about mayhem and stuff like that. You're talking about the church.
I don't want them coming to my house and burning my house down or anything like that.
Most of them are dead.
I mean, fuck those guys in the sense that, like, Ozzy was the guy. Like, Ozzy was the most evil fucking thing when I was a kid, and then he became this fucking reality TV show guy.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. It kind of ruined his whole, because he had that imagery of the Prince of Darkness, and he was just this hero. And then you got to watch him like stumbling around, like making toast, and we already know what happened between Dickinson and Sabbath with that a little bit that year, and Bruce would come out. You don't have to see me in the reality show making toast and stuff.
Making pancakes and not being able to work the fucking remote control. And on a side note, where did Steve Keeler go? Keeler go?
Yeah, Steve, quit fucking with your camera.
Hey, we got posters.
Steve is having a full-on.
I'm showing my classic Black Sabbath blacklight posters. The reason I'm hiding from you. We
and he's still trying to sell Maiden at the same time. You notice how everything tonight Keeler's showing is Sabbath with Maiden next to it. You see?
Yeah.
Well, we've been talking Maiden. Oh yeah, I mean, I didn't. Those posters have been up there for many years. So anyhow, no.
So in closing.
I mean,
go ahead, Will. I'm sorry, Will. I'm sorry.
By the way, they Maiden's in the new nominations for the Hall of Fame. I saw today.
Yippee!
That's awesome.
Sorry, Will. I'm going to drink while you talk.
Jay-Z's going.
Will, we're still on Will. We're having a good time. We're talking about fun stuff. So hope everyone's enjoying the program.
Speaking of Fairies Wear Boots, that's my go-to song on the karaoke stage on 70,000 Tons of Metal. I've done it all 3 times.
Oh, really?
do it quite well.
That's going to be the first single from Lords of Chicken Shit. That's going to be the first single.
So how about we do Lords of Chicken Shit, and we're all vocalists, and we can do a karaoke Wednesday night coming up one week.
And we could call the show Bukkake Karaoke.
Acapella karaoke, since we can't use any music. Oh, and by the way, while I'm still here, yo-ho, it's a Pirates right for me. Buccaneers world champs.
I was rooting for him.
Me too.
So I just wanted to add one more thing about Sabotage. Speaking of the phrasing and stuff, I think the lyrics and the vocal performance on Thrill of It All are fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, it inspired hip hop in a way, like just the way the beat is and it breaks down. It's fucking great. I mean, I don't listen to hip hop, but it has that vibe, and that's just the magic of Sabbath. They can do stuff out of the box and still be heavy. And the second half of the song is a total hippie fest, That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I love that shit, man.
I love it.
Yeah, man.
And every single day since last March, I've been singing "Tell Me, People, Am I Going Insane?" It hasn't stopped for a year every day.
And some of the songs that, like Will said, are very marijuana influenced. Stuff like "Looking for Today" and stuff that helps, I guess.
It's a great listen. That record is a great listen. It's a freaking musical roller coaster.
And Bill Ward, I just read earlier today that Bill Ward was wearing his wife's Lighting.
Yep.
Pants, yeah.
Yep.
But I didn't really know what picture they were taking for it, and it ended up being the album cover. I guess.
Wow.
That's a terrible cover.
I love that album
cover. I don't care what you say. It's terrible cover.
I love it.
They were saying Paranoid was a terrible cover, but they're iconic covers, whatever, I don't know.
They're
on
iconic
that Sabotage tour, Ozzy was sounding amazing, man. He was pulling off all those songs live. Yeah. Like that album, Past Lives, it has a show from the Sabotage tour, and he's doing Megalomania, man. Like actually halfway through the song, he starts singing it at a lower register. But for the first half, he's like the album, man.
I got the Past Lives right here.
The Sabbath record covers are like every single guy in that band had really bad eyesight for reading, and none of them had their reading glasses when they had to approve the covers. Like, that's awesome. I love it. It's just like they're all okay. Those record covers are like, but it wasn't about that. It's like all those record covers, if you go through them all, none of them are like absolutely brilliant album covers.
Which is fucking crazy. Like, that's right. Well, go ahead. Well, we're gonna say
they're decent album covers, but they're not like I don't think they really. It doesn't seem to me like Black Sabbath gave a shit at all what their album covers were. They really, they were really concerned. It seemed to me like that was one of the things that was thrown at them, and they were like, "That's fine, that's great, that's fine." It doesn't really seem to me that any of those guys spent more time on that than they did the credits. It's like they.
I mean. They let their music do the talking. I think
exactly.
Has that one.
That's my point. That's my point with that. They really, you look at all of them. You could tell. I don't think that any of those guys really concentrated that much on what they went with the None More Black whole science of the record cover the whole time. They didn't care.
Also, Steven, I gotta tell you, I'm in the middle of a pinball tournament right now on my PlayStation 4. So while
Is that what you're doing? Are you playing pinball right now? Or I thought maybe you were watching a hockey game, but I can see you were looking up at something while we're talking.
No, I'm playing Theater of Magic right now against some kid.
I hope you get the grand champions score. We'll talk pinball, and when we go off the air, we'll talk a little pinball tonight. Cool. Let's give John McEntee the room. He's been waiting, and I know what it's like to wait because me and Chris go last on Hudson Valley Square some weeks, and John, it's your room, so tell us some of what you need to tell us.
Okay. Well, I don't know when Andrew was talking about Ozzy and the importance of him and how evil he was and stuff. I agree, especially in the early 80s, he was really considered super evil. But even back in the Black Sabbath days, I do have to say that I started to change my opinion of him once he kind of did that Phyllis Diller look for a little while. When he shaved his head.
The Sato look. People in the Hudson Valley, there's a cover band, tribute band, Sato. Jamie does that. We call it, what was it, Fat Ozzy? I think we were calling it for a while.
It's FATSO.
But he had the, like the silver gown and the permed hair.
Yeah, and I kind of ruined my opinion of how evil he was. But there is no doubt that, I mean, that stuff is just iconically important in the 70s. I mean, almost everything that came after it, is a result of what they did, because they mixed so many different things in the songs. I mean, it's just such a massively important band. I mean, everybody knows that already, but I know I kind of slag Ozzy a lot, just because most of the times when I've seen him, he's really sounded like crap live. But in theory, I do really appreciate him, and I mean, I love his voice, especially on those the early Sabbath albums are great, and I even think on 13 he did a great job.
Yeah.
I when it comes to solo stuff, it's a little hit or miss vocal wise. Some of his later stuff, it just seemed a little generic, but. Anyway, my last two picks is the same as pretty much everybody. Bloody Sabbath. I mean, it's just an amazing album. I mean, the song Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. I mean, those high vocals in that are crazy, and it's just a great. The album is just an amazing album, the whole thing. And then my final one is Sabotage too. I mean, songs. I mean, Megalomania.
Sabotage for the win tonight.
I mean, that one is really great. I mean, Hole in the Sky. I mean, Simply the Universe. Yeah, I mean, those are all monumental moments. I mean, it was kind of like they did amazing stuff all the way up till Sabotage, and then they like went another step ahead even, and did like an album that was even different than what they did in the past, with still having the elements of it. But I think it's a substantially different album if you compare it to the first few. But it was like done in a I don't know, it's just as amazing, if not maybe more amazing, at the amount of talent that they had, that they could just do something like that and still have it sound like Sabbath. I mean, if you listen to the album, it has like different horn sections in it, like in places, just like little weird things here and there. And I think that's really amazing. Just artistically, it's amazing. Plus, the songs just kick ass. I mean, some of their heaviest, most pissed off songs, I think, are on there. I mean, Simpsons of the Universe, pretty much is like, the template for everything kind of aggressive, thrashy. But anyway, so those are my two picks. But really, any of the songs any of the albums from the first, from the first album till Never Say Die are all monumental. To me, they're all on a pedestal for sure.
I always found with Black Sabbath, like anytime I was doing like a death metal party and like we were at a death metal show, if we went back to somebody's house, that you could always put on a Black Sabbath album and everybody be happy.
Yeah, everybody's cool with it. Yeah, it totally bridged the gap.
Like hair metal or whether it was a death metal scene. And I want to say, from being alive in that time period, when this came out after Sabotage, I remember it being a letdown. First, I was like, wow, it's got a weird cover. Getting it home. I mean, I love the album now, but I thought it was a big letdown from Sabotage to that album.
Sure.
Well, one more song I wanted to mention by Sabbath that really had a huge effect, and I think it was off. I'm not sure. I think it was on first record. Was The Wizard, and I always, like I said before, it's like I always think of them as a blues band, like just a fucking out of control blues band, and a song like The Wizard, where they bring a fucking harmonica in it, on this album that's supposed to be this really evil, sort of thing, I think it kind of proves that the band was, again, they were influenced by the blues, they were totally influenced by the blues, and it just became this other fucking thing,
much like early Zeppelin was,
Yeah, and I remember every band that I was in coming up, I was like, I want to do The Wizard, but I don't play fucking harmonica. You know what I mean? Like, like now you see a band that's like as evil and heavy, like they were, or they are, or however you want to, say it, whatever tense you want to put it in. Could you imagine, like, I don't know, Cannibal Corpse coming out with a fucking harmonica? You know what I mean? Like some dude just coming out. Like
that'd be pretty fun to watch Corpse Grinder.
That shit don't happen anymore. So
all I'm gonna say is I'm gonna go out on a limb to say Black Sabbath did inhale. That's all.
Yeah, they did.
That band was like they were like the freaking hippie stoner band that played metal music. They were that.
I mean,
they were like a jam band. They were like a jam band playing metal, and they
were the anti-happy band because they didn't come from a happy place.
Of course, I mean, they were the only metal band then, so they were gaining on other influences. And I mean, you look at the shows they played. I mean, Deep Purple were around too. Let's not forget about them from that time period. But yeah, and
you could hear after Sabotage that something was going on with them internally, and then when they made that move, and they had to speak when they came out with Heaven and Hell, and it was just they had to make that jump because they were at such a high level with that Sabotage album, and something internally was happening that made them let go of Ozzy, and to let go of Ozzy, they had to make the statement, and Ronnie and Heaven and Hell was
coming back with that.
Yeah, that was like the only statement I think that could have been made that people would have listened to.
We kind of know what happened with Ozzy, and then they were just fighting and not getting along, and then they picked some unknown band named Van Halen to warm up on the tour, and it was kind of a disaster for everybody. I think, except for Van Halen. But
they definitely had to make a statement when they did something without when
they came back. Yeah, and they did for sure. And I think we're about wrapping things up tonight, and I want to let Chris Alo do a closing statement tonight. You've got something to tell us, Chris, don't you?
Okay.
Wake you up.
Okay. Well, I was going to say one story that like I heard from Tony Iommi that I never heard from anybody else was when they were first doing the Heaven and Hell reunion, I guess like 2006, when Tony was first starting to talk to Ronnie again. He said that Tony and his wife, I think Maria, the singer from Drain, STH, had dinner at I can't remember if it was Ozzy's house or Tony's house, but they had dinner with Ozzy and Sharon.
Wow.
And Sharon was livid that Tony was trying to get things back together with Ronnie. And she's like, listen, forget this Ronnie James Dio stuff. She's like, I will get you in the studio right away with Ozzy. You could do the first Sabbath record with all the original members since Never Say Die. She's like, forget about Ronnie. Ozzy's the way. I'll clear Ozzy's schedule. Let's get this together. And to Tony Iommi's credit, he's like, Sharon, he's like, we reunited with Ozzy in 97. He's like, we've been trying for 10 years to do a record with Ozzy. It hasn't worked. He's like, I'm doing this thing with Ronnie. He's like, you guys do whatever you need to do. He's like, but I'm doing this stuff with Ronnie. And of course,
for the Heaven and Hell project, right?
Oh, that's off the top of my head. That's the.
Well, thank God he said that, because if he didn't, we may never have seen another, something from Ronnie with them. That allowed us to see that band one more time.
Absolutely.
I thought you were going to tell the Glenn Danzig story, but that's not an Ozzy related one. So that's another episode.
Well, I'll save that for the next one, because I was going to say you should totally do a third episode, which I would totally do, of all the other guys that sang.
Yeah, I'm down for doing that coming up. Yeah.
Yep.
Tony.
I could do a whole episode on Ian Gillan's album.
Yeah.
We could do a Born Again, yeah, for sure.
That's amazing.
Whatever you guys think.
Black. Let's say it in unison. Black fucking Sabbath, everyone.
Yeah.
I can't fucking hear you. Anyhow, so thanks everyone for coming on and giving us their time tonight. Will from Death Angel, Andrew, last in line, Chris, TSO, Savatage, John from Incantation, and Chris Alo, one of my best friends from Hudson Valley Squares and Sea of Tranquility. We've got a couple shows in the works coming up now. We're going to be covering Iron Maiden's 40th anniversary on Friday this week. Next Wednesday, we will revisit Ozzy Osbourne and talk about his solo works. And John is helping out the channel quite a bit, and he's got a couple things he's working on now. Maybe John could tell us real quick before we wrap up.
I don't know. Oh, the Hallows Eve episode. And
Eve episode. Yeah.
I'm doing I gotta be doing an interview with Jeff Becerra from Possess, so look out for that. And also Alex Brooks from Immolation, I'm doing one with for his new project, Shadows.
And that'll be all in the Rock Fantasy Files. And please take a second to subscribe. Please comment on your favorite Black Sabbath albums and or songs. And check out rockfantasy.com and go buy merchandise from all these bands. Go on their websites right now and buy a shirt or buy a record, buy something. Help everybody out while we're sitting at home doing these shows instead of out at shows, So rock on and heavy fucking metals, everyone.
Yeah, what he said.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too.